The twin suns hung low over the blood-stained sand of the massive alien arena. Walls of steel rose high, covered in banners from over a dozen conquered worlds. The crowd, a wild mix of species horned, scaled, furred, roared as the champion stepped forward. She was tall, over 7 feet. Her skin was bronze and marked with deep scars from wars long past. Her black battle braids swung with each step, and her glowing red armor reflected the arena lights. She raised her massive sword, the blade pulsing with power, and slammed it into the ground with a loud crack. "Bring me another one," she shouted, her voice booming across the battlefield. She pointed her sword toward the human section. Her yellow eyes narrowed. "You call these weak things men?" she sneered. "I've crushed 5 already, each one softer than the last." The crowd howled in laughter and cheers. Her people, the Kravera, fed on pride, dominance, and blood. Their warriors lived to humiliate the so-called lesser species, and humans, to them, were the lowest. On the other side of the arena, the human commander's face tightened. 5 men lay broken and bruised on stretchers, some unconscious, some groaning in pain. None had lasted more than a minute. But the 6th. Human stepped forward, quietly, calmly. He wore no armor, no helmet, just a black undershirt and faded combat pants. A single band around his arm showed he was cleared for the fight. He looked small in that arena. Average height, lean build, no medals, no cybernetics, no glowing eyes. The alien crowd broke into mocking laughter. Even the warrior smirked. "This is your final offering," she shouted. "Did you run out of soldiers and send a janitor?" The man said nothing. He walked across the sand slowly, each step solid, like the weight of the world sat on his shoulders. San had carried it before. She circled him, amused. "No weapon? No armor? You'll die even faster?" Still no response. The announcer began. The match with a loud horn. The gates sealed. The arena, The warrior lunged forward like lightning, her massive sword coming down fast, aiming straight for the man's shoulder. But he didn't move, not until the last second, then like wind. Slipping through cracks, he stepped aside. The sword slammed into the dirt where he had just been. She blinked, surprised before she could recover. His hand moved, one motion, smooth, clean. He reached up, grabbed the edge of her chest plate, twisted, and drove his elbow into her side. Just under the ribs. The force knocked her sideways. Her balance broke, and then he grabbed the hilt of her sword and yanked. The next thing anyone saw, she was on her knees. Her own weapon now in his hand. The crowd fell silent. Dust floated in the air. Time seemed to pause. The great Kravari warrior, the one who called humans pathetic, was down, her eyes wide, mouth slightly open. She looked up at him. The man didn't smile. He didn't taunt. He didn't speak. He simply turned the blade, dropped it in the sand, and walked away. Gasps echoed across the arena. Her mouth moved. The words barely came out. "Who, ... are you?" But he didn't turn. He kept walking, leaving her kneeling in the dust, broken not in body, but in pride. Far above, in the command booth, a Kravari general slammed his fist on the console. "That's not possible," he growled, in the human. Viewing zone, stunned silence slowly turned to cheers. Whispers ran through every corner of the arena. What? Even the guards at the exits looked at each other with doubt. Who was he? Not a soldier? Not a fighter? Just a man? And yet with one move, he had shattered everything they believed about humans. She remained there, staring at the ground, hearing only one sound, her own heartbeat. For the first time in her life, she wasn't angry. She wasn't. Ashamed she was, ... afraid, not of him, but of what he showed her. That maybe strength wasn't just muscle. Maybe humans weren't weak. Maybe everything she believed was a lie. Asterisk, the warrior's name was Varix, a daughter of the Blades. Iker. Of the Steel Moons, first spear of the Kravari Empire. Her titles were many, her pride unmatched. Until now, she sat alone in the shadows beneath the arena. Her armor dusty and bent, the ache in her ribs real worse than the physical pain was the silence that followed. No applause. No chance. No songs of victory. Only her breathing. The human who had bested her was gone. No name, no file, no fanfare. Just a man who entered the arena and walked away without a word, leaving behind a crack in the Kravari. Belief that all humans were weak. She demanded answers. Her first visit was to the human command deck. The Kravari guards tried to stop her, but no one truly could. Her glare alone made them step aside. Inside the command center, the human officer in charge, Commander Baines, looked up as she entered. "Where is he?" she demanded. Baines raised an eyebrow. "Who? The one who fought me." The commander leaned back in his seat and crossed his arms. "He's not enlisted, not part of our combat unit. Then what is he?" she growled. Civilian Baines said, almost amused. "Name's Cole. Volunteer worker. Used to repair ship engines." Verixa blinked. "That's impossible." He pulled up a data file. Barely anything was there. A name, a few blurry images, records of small assignments, no combat history, no elite training, just a list of low-rank jobs: transport handler, food supply runs, maintenance tech. She stared at the screen. That man is not a worker. He moved like a ghost. Baines shrugged. "Then you should ask him yourself. He doesn't talk much, though." She stormed out without another word, anger boiling under her skin, but not the kind she was used to. This wasn't rage. It was confusion, and something else she couldn't name. She spent the next few hours scanning the lower decks. She found him on a cargo platform at the edge of the human compound, alone, repairing a broken transport loader. Sweat dripped from his brow, his sleeves rolled up. No guards, no watchers, just him and his tools. She watched him from behind a cargo crate. For a long time, he didn't move like someone who wanted attention. He moved with purpose. Quiet purpose. Didn't look around to see who was watching. Didn't even seem aware he'd become a symbol overnight. Finally, she stepped out. "You humiliated me." Didn't look up. "You challenged me." Embarrass the Empire wasn't my goal. You disarmed me in front of thousands. I just reacted. Her jaw clenched. How? He stopped working and looked at her for the first time. His eyes were clear, not cold, not cruel, just calm. It unnerved her more than hate ever could. "I've lost before," he said. "Losing teaches you how not to lose again. Don't fight like a human." "I fight like someone with nothing left to lose." The silence between them stretched. Arexa looked down, her mind racing. This man, this Cole, was unlike anyone she had faced. He hadn't just defeated her body. He had exposed a truth her people had long ignored. That fear doesn't only come from the strong screaming in your face, but sometimes from the quiet ones who don't need to. She tried again. "Where did you learn to move like that?" He wiped his hands on a rag. "Before your empire burned." "My home? I trained under someone who believed war wasn't won by strength but by understanding your enemy." Her breath caught. "You're from Valenine?" she asked. Her people had invaded that colony years ago. He nodded. "I was 15. Her voice faltered. "I fought there, I know," he said. "I saw you once, from the rubble. Your blade dripped with my neighbor's blood." She froze. For the first time in her life, she didn't know what to say. "I hated you then," he continued. "I don't now. Hate makes you blind, but I needed you to see. That's why I stepped into that ring." Without force, and for the second time that day, she didn't stop him. She turned her eyes toward the setting suns. Something inside her was changing. She didn't understand it yet, but she knew this. Cole had broken something in her, not her body, not even her pride. He had shattered the image of what it meant to be strong, and it terrified her. Behind her, whispers had already started. Among the Kravari warriors, rumors spread. Some called Cole a freak. Others claimed he was genetically modified. A few wanted revenge, but Verixa knew better. He wasn't a freak. He was human, just more human than anyone she had ever known. And she couldn't stop thinking about him. Asterisk days passed. But Verixa couldn't forget. She had fought in over 90 battles. Won them all. Broke bones, took lives, crushed rebellions. Her name alone could silence a room. But now, in the silence of her personal chamber, her mind kept replaying that moment one move, and everything shattered. Cole had not shouted. Not even raised a fist in victory. It simply walked away as if defeating a Kravari champion was just another task on his list. No pride, no challenge, no hate. She tried training, slammed her fists into metal dummies until her knuckles bled. She fought sparring partners and knocked them out within seconds. But no matter how hard she pushed, something was missing. For the first time in her life, her rage wasn't working. It wasn't sharpening her, it was clouding her. She needed to understand him. She needed to understand why he fought like that. Why he didn't act like every other creature she'd faced, so she followed him. Not openly. She stayed hidden in the shadows of the base corridors. She watched as he helped lift heavy boxes for wounded soldiers. She saw him fix a broken water line without being asked. She noticed how he always gave his extra food to the youngest recruits. He moved with calm purpose, like everything he did had meaning, even the small things. He didn't talk much. Others mocked him for being the guy who dropped a war goddess. He just smiled, said nothing, and kept working. She expected arrogance. She expected a fighter to boast. But he wasn't a fighter. He was something else. Something quieter. More dangerous. One evening, she trailed him to the back hangar. One else was around. The place was quiet, lit only by orange light strips along the walls. He sat alone, staring at a wall covered in pictures, burned homes, shattered helmets, a woman holding a child. It's both gone now. He didn't notice her standing behind a storage crate. She stepped out slowly. Making her presence known, he turned his head slightly but didn't seem surprised. "You're not very good at sneaking," he said, voice flat but not rude. "I didn't come to sneak," she replied. "I came to understand." He nodded toward the wall. "Then look." She stepped forward. The images hit her like punches. Entire colonies destroyed. Families erased. These weren't taken from propaganda screens. They were personal, real, raw. "You took these?" she asked. "I lived them." She stared at a photo of a boy standing beside a downed shuttle, his eyes hollow. "That's you?" "Yes." "And the woman?" "My mother." She was silent for a long time. The Kravari had taken many worlds. Victory had always been clean in her mind. Orders given, enemies crushed, territories claimed, never stopped. To think about what was left behind. The faces, the broken lives. "You hate me," she said softly. "I did," he answered. "But hate isn't useful. It doesn't fix anything." She looked at him. "Then why did you fight me?" "Because you needed to be shown that power isn't always loud." That line struck deep. She'd always been taught that power had to be loud, shouting, slamming, killing. But he had shown her something else. He had beaten her by being silent. By being still. She sat down across from him. A Kravari warrior had never done that before, sat with a human, without rank, without threat. "You changed something in me," she admitted. He didn't respond right away. Then he asked, "Is that a good thing?" She hesitated. "No yet." They sat like that for a while, not speaking. The silence wasn't tense. It was peaceful. For her, it was unfamiliar, uncomfortable, but not unwelcome. That night, she returned to her quarters and deactivated all her weapons. For the first time since she was a child, she didn't sleep in armor. She didn't dream of blood or victory. She dreamed of silence, of cold. The next day, whispers around the base grew louder. Some Kravari officers noticed her strange behavior. "Why haven't you challenged him again?" they asked. "Why do you watch him like prey, but never strike?" She gave no answers. A Kravari soldier from her old war unit confronted her directly. "This human has shamed us all. You, our strongest, kneel before his name. Has your heart grown soft?" She looked him in the eyes. "No, it has grown curious." Soldiers spit at her feet. "Careful. Curiosity leads to betrayal." She didn't respond, but inside, she already knew. The more she watched Cole, the more she realized maybe betrayal wasn't such a bad thing. If the truth was worth it, and that truth was clear now, he wasn't special because he was stronger. He was special because he didn't need to be. He had nothing. And yet, he stood taller than everyone, and that made her want to know everything, not just about him, but about herself. Varaxa was changing. She felt it in the way she walked. No longer with the thunderous stomp of a warrior craving attention, but with the quiet, deliberate steps of someone searching for answers. Her fellow Krivari noticed. Whispers followed her wherever she went. They called her distracted, weakened, tainted by the human. But she no longer cared what they said. Not after what she had seen. Her pride had been a fortress, built over years of war, blood, and victory. But Cole, he had walked through that fortress like it was smoke, and now she wanted to understand why. She returned to the hangar again. This time, not to hide, but to speak. Cole was there, as always, working in silence, fixing the broken pieces of other people's lives. It was his way. He didn't fight wars with swords anymore. He fought them with repairs, with kindness, with calm. She approached and sat beside him, without a word. He didn't look up. Finally she asked, "How do you do it?" He paused. "Do what?" "Carry your pain so quietly." He gave a small shrug. "Carrying it loudly doesn't make it lighter." She stared at his hands, scarred, calloused, rough. Not warrior's hands. Not killer's hands. It's just hands that had built, repaired, rebuilt. "I killed your people," she whispered. "Yes, I destroyed your home. Yes, I nearly killed you once." "Yes." She looked up, expecting. "Hate?" But he didn't show any. "You don't hate me anymore?" she asked. He finally looked at her. "No, because if I hated you, I'd become like you used to be." That silence between them was heavier than before. This time it wasn't cold, it was human. Real. For the first time, Varaxa told him something no one had ever heard from her mouth. "I wasn't born a warrior." He turned to her. "My people take girls at the age of 5 and send them into training pits," she continued. "We fight, bleed, starve. If we survive, we earn a name. If not, our bodies are used for training drills." Cole said nothing. She listened. "My first kill was at 9, she said quietly. "They made me fight another child. I broke her. Neck with my knee. They cheered. They gave me meat. That was the first time I wasn't hungry in weeks." He looked at her, not with pity, but with understanding. "I didn't become a killer," she said. "I was shaped into one." Cole nodded. "That's why I didn't kill you in the arena. You weren't the enemy. The ones who made you were." She stared at him, mouth slightly open. "You saw that. ... Even when I was trying to destroy you? I've seen enough war to know who the real enemies are." The conversation stuck with her. That night, she went somewhere she hadn't returned to in years, the Hall of Records. It was a massive vault deep in the Krivari base sealed archives. War files, footage, logs from old battles. Only generals and champions had access. She keyed in her code and entered alone. Rows of memory crystals floated in the air. Holograms flickered softly. She searched through the old war specifically, Vala 9, the planet Cole had come from. She watched footage of the Krivari invasion, buildings leveled, families running, soldiers laughing. And there among the chaos was a young boy crouched beside a burning home, his face covered in ash, his eyes wide with horror. Cold, she pressed, her palm against the screen, stunned. She didn't even remember that battle. To her it was just another victory. Another star on her armor, another tale for her war songs. But to him, it was the end of everything. She sat there for hours, watching, learning, undoing years of lies her people had told. Krivari weren't noble warriors. They were conquerors, invaders, monsters, and someone. It's Elsa's sky. And she had helped them every step of the way. Her hands trembled as she stood up back on the surface, walked straight to the training yards where new recruits sparred under the eye of brutal instructors. One cadet, a thin human teen, was being beaten by a Kravari elite for lack of aggression. Brexa stepped in. Without a word, she caught the instructor's wrist mid-swing. He snarled, "This is Kravari. Business." She tightened her grip until he winced. "Not anymore," she said coldly. She turned to the human recruit, offered her hand, and pulled him up gently. Gasps rippled through the yard. A Kravari champion, helping a human from a rooftop above. Two Kravari generals watched the scene unfold. "She's turning," one whispered. The other growled. "Then we'll remind her where her loyalty lies." Below, Varexa looked out at the horizon. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but she knew this. She would never fight for lies again. She would fight for truth, and for the first time in her life. Felt human, that night. The base didn't sleep. Whispers moved through corridors like ghosts. Some said Varexa had turned traitor. Others said she had fallen under a human spell. A few believed she was preparing for something. Big, something dangerous. But none of them knew the truth. Vaxa sat at the edge of the outer wall, staring at the stars above the dunes. She no longer wore her armor, no longer carried her blade. She had returned it to the vault earlier that evening, laid it on the stone in silence, and walked away. She had fought for the Empire her whole life. But now, the Empire looked like a cage. Behind her, she sensed the quiet approach of footsteps. Calm, unhurried. She didn't turn. "You're not good at sneaking either." Cole came and sat beside her. "I wasn't trying to." They sat together, in the quiet of the desert wind. After a while, she said, "I went into the war records." He didn't ask what she found. He already knew. "I saw your mother," she added. "She tried to cover you with her body, even after she was gone." He said nothing, but something in his eyes flickered. "I didn't know her name," she whispered. "But I remember her face now. I was there that day." Long silence stretched between them. "I can't undo it," she said. "You're not supposed to," he replied. She turned toward him. "Then what am I supposed to do?" Cole looked at her carefully. "You already started, the moment you stopped fighting and started listening." Just then, a loud explosion shook the ground beneath them. Alarms blared. Flames erupted from the far end of the human quarters. Varexa jumped to her feet. That came from the medical bay. They sprinted together through the smoke-filled halls. Screams echoed. People ran. The smell of plasma and burning metal filled the air. Asterisk. Inside the bay, fire licked the walls. Several wounded soldiers were trapped beneath fallen beams. One screamed for help. Cole charged forward without hesitation, dropped to his knees, and began lifting the debris with his bare hands. Didn't wait, she grabbed the steel beam and pulled with him. They freed the man and dragged him to safety. Then another explosion went off, closer this time. The lights went out. Red emergency strobes flashed. A shadow moved in the smoke fast. Precise. Then another Varex's instincts kicked in. She spun, grabbing Cole and pushing him down just as a plasma blade sliced through the air where his head had been. Assassins, Kravra, trained, moving in the dark like ghosts. Sent to kill. They weren't after the wounded. They were after him. Varex's hand reached for a weapon she didn't have, but Cole, to her surprise, was already moving. He swept one attacker's leg and drove a piece of metal tubing into the side of his helmet. The assassin fell. The second came at her. Even without her blade, she fought like fire, striking fast, low, brutal. She drove her elbow into his neck, then snapped his arm. Disarming him, blood spilled onto the floor. She breathed heavily, looking down at the two bodies. They weren't thieves, Cole said. They were soldiers. She nodded. Empire soldiers. Sent for you, because I humiliated one of theirs? No, she said, wiping blood from her mouth. Because I stood beside you. They both looked around. The smoke began to clear, but something had changed now. This wasn't politics anymore. This was war. Later, while the fire crews cleaned the mess and medics tended to the injured, Varexa and Cole sat in a dark corridor, bruised and breathing. Hard, they'll try again, Cole said. She nodded. They won't stop, then we leave. She turned to him. Leave where? There's a rebel system 3 jumps from here, hidden. Off-grid. Built by humans who survived your empires. Wars? You want me to run? I want you to live. Her face hardened. And what will they think of me? A Kravari warrior. A killer. Cole looked into her eyes. They'll think what I think. That anyone brave enough to walk away from everything they were trained to be deserves a chance. She didn't answer, but she didn't say no. That night, Varexa didn't return to her quarters. She met Cole by the hangar before dawn. Stolen freighter waited in the shadows. They moved quietly, no words. No hesitation, as the ship lifted into the stars. Varexa looked down at the base that had once been her home, and she whispered to herself, "Never again." Behind her, Cole stood at the console, eyes focused on the stars ahead. They were now both fugitives, a human who refused to bow, and an alien warrior who refused to hate. Together, they would build something new, even if it had to rise from the ashes of war. Asterisk, the stars stretched. Endlessly beyond the freighter's front glass, cold, quiet, vast. Vast quotes are Exa had seen hundreds of planets, fought in cities floating above oceans and inside moons turned into weapons. But she had never felt so alone. Or so free. Cole flew the ship with practiced ease. Eyes stayed fixed on the screen, watching for patrols. Kravari warships controlled most of the galaxy. One signal, one wrong move, it'd be hunted. But there was no fear in his hands. Just focus. She sat behind him, watching the stars pass. Her fingers curled tight. I should feel like a traitor, she said finally. You're not, he replied. I left everything. My name, my people, my honor. No, he said, glancing at her. You just stopped lying to yourself. His words felt like sharp truth, simple, heavy, but right. He set the ship on autopilot and turned to face her fully. You still think you're a monster? She didn't answer right away. I think I was made into one. He nodded, then unmake it. It sounded too easy. But something in the way he said it made her believe it was possible. For the next few hours they flew in silence. The hum of the ship was the only sound. Finally they reached the edge of rebel space. The signal beacon blinked red. Warning, unauthorized entry. Cole keyed in a code. Varexa tensed. Will they shoot us down? They might. And if they ask who? I am. I'll tell them, he said, locking eyes with her. You're the one who saved my life. She looked away, unsure if she deserved those words. The screen blinked green. Docking approval granted, as they entered orbit of the hidden moon. Varexa saw it for the first time. Refuge station, built into a crater.
The rebel base looked like a collection of old ship parts welded together.
Lights flickered across landing pads. Children ran between rusted panels. Traders bartered in open markets. It wasn't a military base, it was a living place, real. People trying to build something better from the broken, as the ship touched down. They were met by armed guards, humans, aliens, even hybrids. Suspicious faces, rough weapons. One wrong move, and it would all end fast. But Cole stepped forward, calm as ever. I'm Cole. I've brought someone who needs a second chance. The leader of the rebels, an older woman with cybernetic arms. Raised an eyebrow at Varexa. That's a Kravari. She's not anymore, he said. The woman's eyes narrowed. We've buried too many who said the same. Cole nodded. Then let her prove it. The tension hung in the air. Then the woman stepped aside. She steps out of line once. I don't care who she is, you both burn. Varexa didn't flinch. They were led inside. The base was loud, messy, and alive. It reminded her of something. She had never known family. Not in blood, but in belonging. As they walked, Varexa caught glimpses. A boy repairing a droid with one arm. A blind girl guiding her brother through the corridors. A mother wrapping bandages over an old scar on her child's neck. Each face told a story. Stories like Cole's. Stories she had once helped create. But they didn't spit at her. They didn't curse her name. They simply watched. not with hate, with hope. Later, Cole showed her a room small, with a bed, a sink, and a cracked mirror. "It's not much," he said, "but it's yours." She touched the wall, felt warm. "I don't deserve this." He shrugged. "Deserving doesn't matter. What you do next does." That night, she didn't sleep. Instead, she stared at her reflection in the mirror. The face looking back wasn't the same one that had stood in the arena days ago, mocking humans. It wasn't the face of the Empire's blade. It was something new, something uncertain, but alive. In the days that followed, she worked alongside the rebels, quietly, without title. She carried supplies, repaired broken vents, learned names. Told no one who she was, until one day a child ran up to her. "Are you the warrior who used to fight us?" She froze. The child stared up wide-eyed. "I was," she said slowly. "Why'd you stop?" She thought hard. "Because one man showed me. I was fighting for the wrong thing." The child smiled and walked away, as if that answer was enough. Varexa stood there. Stunned, she had expected hatred. She found forgiveness. But peace never lasted long. One night, Cole burst into the repair bay where she was working. "They found us," he said. She didn't ask who. She already knew. The Krivari Empire had sent a fleet, and this time, they weren't coming to silence one man. They were coming to destroy the entire station. She stood, eyes cold, calm. "I ran once," she said. "I won't run again." Cole met her gaze. "Then we fight." But not like before. This time, she wouldn't be their weapon. This time, she'd be their shield, and beside her, for the first time ever, she had a people worth protecting. Asterisk, the alarm rang across Refuge Station like a scream in the night. People ran, sirens blared, lights flickered red. Above the crater where the rebel base stood, the Krivari fleet had arrived, 10 warships in a formation built to crush. Not captured .va Rexa stood on the platform, wind cutting through her hair, staring up at the black sky filled with blinking death. Behind her, children were being rushed into the deep tunnels. Traders packed what they could. Engineers grabbed weapons they barely knew how to use. This wasn't a base built for war. It was built for survival. And now, it was under attack. Cole stood beside her, rifle in hand. His face was calm, but his jaw was tight. He had known this day would come, but it had come sooner than expected. "They're not here to negotiate," he said. Varexa nodded. "They're here for me." Cole looked at her. "And what do you want to do?" She stared at the sky, at the familiar outline of the lead ship, the Wrath of Ulanor, her old flagship. "I want them to remember what they made me," she said, "and what they lost." She turned to the rebel leader. "Your defenses, get the civilians deep underground." The woman didn't argue. Not anymore. Varexa had earned that respect. Not with speeches, but with work, grit, and quiet strength. As the first Krivari dropships descended through the sky, Varexa walked into the old armory. She opened a crate that hadn't been touched in years. Inside was a blade, not just any. Blade, her blade, forged from the bones of a collapsed star, marked with victories. Once a symbol of fear. Now, something else. She strapped it across her back, walked into the open yard, and waited. The first wave hit hard. Asterisk. Krivari soldiers spilled into the station like fire-tall, armored, merciless. The rebels fought back with whatever they had, plasma rifles, explosives, even sharpened tools. Va Rexa met the front line head-on. She didn't hold back. She moved. Like wind over stone, fast, silent, devastating. Her blade carved through metal and armor alike, not with anger, not with rage, with purpose. She wasn't fighting for blood. She was fighting for people who had once feared her name and now trusted. Her life, Cole fought beside her. Not with fancy moves or brute strength, but with precision. Covered her blind spots, pulled allies to safety, knew where to be before danger arrived. They were in sync, one heart, one cause. And for the first time in her life, Varexa didn't feel alone in battle. But then the second wave landed, and this one brought someone else. General Trask, her old commander. The one who had trained her. The one who had sent assassins. The one who believed strength meant never asking questions. He stepped off the ship, taller than her, armor glowing with Empire symbols. His voice boomed through the coms. Varexa, stand down. This isn't your war anymore. She stepped forward, blade in hand. It never was mine. It was yours. Don't be foolish. Come home. You're a legend. We can erase this. I don't want to be a legend, she said. I want to be right? He didn't speak again. He just raised his hand, and all hell broke loose. Explosions ripped through the yard. Fighters rained fire. Rebels fell. But they kept fighting. And at the center of it, Varexa and Cole, together, back to dash back. She met Trask in single combat, under the falling ash of burning towers. He was strong, but she was stronger now, not because of muscle or speed, but because she had something he didn't. Single quotes. Truth. Every strike he threw was fueled by pride. Every strike she gave was powered by purpose. He swung high. She blocked. He went low. She dodged. And then she saw his weakness. She stepped in close. Too close. He grinned. But it wasn't a mistake. She whispered, "You raised me to be a weapon." Then she drove the blade into his side. But I chose to be more. He collapsed, eyes wide. The Kavari soldiers froze, unsure what to do, and then one by one. Some of them dropped their weapons. Others turned and ran. It was over. Smoke hung in the air. The station burned in places. But the people still stood alive, whole together later. As dawn broke across the cracked crater walls, Varexa sat on the rooftop watching the sunrise. Her armor was cracked. Her blade rested beside her. Her body ached, but her soul was quiet. Cole came and sat beside her. "You saved them," he said. "No," she replied. "We saved them." He smiled. She turned to him. "Do you still see the girl from Velenine?" Shook his head. "No, I see the woman who stood between death and everyone else, and didn't flinch." She looked back toward the light. "I mocked humans once," she said. Weak. Cole didn't interrupt. And then one beat me without even raising his voice. He smiled. Glad to be of service. They sat in silence, watching a new day rise. There was no crown, no empire, no legend. Just a man and a warrior, and something stronger than both hope. The end. Asterisk.